Welcome to Test Room, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing. Before we begin, a quick note. If you are new to the CI/CD world, I recommend checking out my earlier videos in the playlist as prerequisite. I will share the link in the description below. In this video, we will explore Jenkins pipeline in depth, covering its end-to-end functionality. A Jenkins pipeline is a collection of plugins that automate and orchestrate continuous integration and continuous delivery and deployment operations. To understand its significance, let's revisit the basics of software development. When a developer pushes or commits his codebase to the main repository, a pipeline gets triggered. This pipeline performs several essential steps: checks out the codebase, builds the project, runs the automated test, creates the deployable packages, and deploys them into non-production environment. In case of Jenkins pipeline, all these operations are managed by a single file called as Jenkinsfile. This file is typically resides in the source code management system alongside the project code, or it can be directly defined within the pipeline itself. So in summary, Jenkins pipeline defines all the actions to be performed as part of the pipeline, like which branch to check out, which commands to run the build during the build process, which automated test to execute, and how to package the build and deploy into the non-production environment. This makes Jenkins file to be called as pipeline as a code. This is because the entire pipeline operations and configurations are defined in this file. This file can be version controlled alongside of the application code. The changes to this pipeline can be tracked, reviewed, and deployed like any other code. This file can also be shared as a template to the other projects as well. There are two ways of writing Jenkins file. One is scripted way, another one is a declarative way. The scripted way is a legacy way and declarative way is a quite new. Let us have a side-by-side comparison between the scripted way and the declarative way of writing the Jenkins file. Scripted way uses the groovy scripting language to define the pipeline, whereas declarative way uses a predefined structured syntax. Scripted way requires more expertise, as a pipeline you need to write using the groovy scripting language, and it is also harder to maintain. It is easier to write and maintain because it uses a simple text way of writing the entire pipeline with the predefined structure. It can be customizable because it will be writing it using the scripts, and it also provides more control overflow, whereas it defines clearly defined stages and steps. Here you can have a full control over error handling and the flow. It has a limited control and simpler error handling. This is because we are writing the entire Jenkins file using a programming language. You can also use try and catch to catch the exception here, but you have a limited control over error handling in case of declarative way. This makes it highly flexible, ideal for complex workflows. This is less flexible and used for standard workflows. So complex pipelines, workflows with conditional logic, you can also write several conditions. So if this particular step fails, then I want to execute the next step and things like that. You can build a logic inside the Jenkins file, whereas it is a standard CI/CD workflow and it is used for simpler pipeline. You cannot induce or inject much logic inside the declarative way of writing. Okay, and it defined using the node and stage blocks. It uses node and stage blocks to define the entire pipeline operations, but whereas the declarative way uses the pipeline block. Okay, now let's go and check how the Jenkins file looks like. Let us go to the Jenkins server and try to create a job using a pipeline. So Jenkins server can be accessible via localhost with the port 8080. So I will try to log in. And once you log in, you can see a dashboard here, and click on the plus symbol here, and then you can give the name for your job. I'll give it as pipeline test, and you will have to select an option as pipeline here. Then click OK. The pipeline gets created, and you can give some description here. This is to learn Jenkins file. Then save this, and then again you can go to configure. If you remember, earlier I have told you there are two ways where you can make Jenkins file available. One is as part of a source code management system along with your project code, or you can make it available as part of the pipeline itself. If you go to the pipeline section here, under the definition, there are two options. One is the pipeline script. If you select as it as a pipeline script, then you will have to write the entire the Jenkins file as part of this particular block. It can be a declarative, or it can be based on the Groovy script, that is a scripted way. Okay, or you can also select another option, pipeline script from SCM. In this case, basically your Jenkins file will be a part of your source code management system. So you have checked in, or you have put your Jenkins file into the version control, and here you will have to specify certain parameters like what is your source code management system and things like that. So for the simple understanding of the Jenkins file, I will not go to the source code management system. Rather, I will select pipeline script. So I will be this will help us to understand the structure of the pipeline, how it really looks like. Later part of this session, we will create a Jenkins file in a GitHub and try to access the file using pipeline script from SCM and try to trigger the build from there. Okay, for a time being, we will use pipeline as a script just to make you understand the structure of the scripted and the declarative pipeline. Jenkins by default provides some sample Jenkins files. If you click here, so you can see Hello World and GitHub with Maven. These are the declarative examples of Jenkins file, and you also have a scripted pipeline here. In this session today, we will try to understand the syntax of the scripted pipeline first, and then we will go to the declarative pipeline. So you can click here to see the snippet of the scripted pipeline. It looks little complex. What I will do, I will not use this. Rather than I have already prepared a very simple scripted pipeline, I am going to use that. I will come back to try sample pipeline, and I will paste my scripted pipeline here. This is how scripted Jenkins file look like. It is a combination of node and stage. Node, this is where the pipeline will run. The node block defines the environment where the stages will execute. This will be typically in a Jenkins agent, either in a physical or in a virtual machine. Stage define the different phases in the build and deployment process. Each stage represents a specific part of the pipeline that performs a particular action, such as the checkout of the code, the build, the test, then packaging, and the deployment. Within each stage, you can write the script, such as in case of Linux, you can write a shell script. In case of Windows, you can write the batch commands to execute the necessary tasks for that phase. In this example, I have put a node block as per the syntax. Inside the node block, I have put a multiple stage blocks. Okay, in each stage block, I will be executing a batch script because it is on Windows, because my slave is a Windows slave, and I will be just printing the what each stage is doing. Right? For example, in case of a checkout, I will be putting an echo statement, that is to print I am doing a checkout, branch checkout. So this is very simple script. Let us go and save this, and then we will build the pipeline now. It is executing and execution is complete. Then you have to just click on this number. That will take you to the detailed information. Let us go to the console output first, and it basically shows where exactly your script has run. It has run on the build host. Basically this is the build host, and it has it has the different phases. That is the checkout phase, then the build phase. This is a build phase, then this is a test phase, and this is a package deploy, and this is the end of the pipeline. Okay, and you can also go to the pipeline overview here, or pipeline steps. Sorry, you can go to the pipeline steps and see the different operations and see how much time each operation took. Okay, here you can see the statistics of it. And also you can go to the pipeline overview, and it clearly says what are the different operations that we performed in this as part of this pipeline. That is the checkout process, the build process, test, package, and deploy. This is basically coming from your Jenkins file, right? So if I go here and if I go to configure, and basically it is showing the stages, right? The stages is shown as the pipeline overview. In the pipeline script, if you see under node section, we did not specify any host or an agent where to execute the test. By default, it executed on a built-in node. Now we will go and specify the particular machine or an agent or a slave where the test to be executed, or where these stages to be executed. Let us go and do this. If you come back to the dashboard, and under the build executor section, we have the two nodes where the test can run. So out of which one is currently offline. Let us try to bring this online, and you can bring it online using this particular command. And before that, we have to go to this path. I already have an agent.jar. It's a time to just execute it. I'll go here, bring the command prompt, execute this command. This will bring my slave online. If you see, this slave is online. We will try to use this slave under node. Under pipeline, if I go to configure, so we will use under node, we will use this particular slave and make the pipeline to execute the stages on that particular node. To this, the syntax is something like this. Node, you will have to open a parenthesis under which you will have to give the label of your host. So in our case, the agent name is Windows 11 slave. We will take this label and then we will go back to our job. Then we configure, and under node, open the parenthesis, and within single quotes or within single quotes, we can give this name. Now I will apply this, and I will save this, and I will try to execute this. Execution is ongoing, but you can go to the console out, and you can see these stages are getting run on the Windows 11 slave. Okay, and the entire workspace is under the d:\workspace/Jenkins. This is the workspace remote workspace configuration for this particular slave. During the slave configuration, we have given this as a path, and under which it will create all its artifacts under this workspace. So now the test is complete and the execution is done on this particular machine, the Windows slave machine. This is how basically we can configure the node as part of the scripted Jenkins file. Let us go back to configure. Jenkins provide lot of built-in variables to work with. So what I have done here, I have opened the official website of Jenkins, and I will put this link into my description. If you go to the pipeline, and under the pipeline there is using Jenkins file. Under the using Jenkins file on the right hand side, you can find the environment variable. These are the set of environment variable that is provided by Jenkins to use, such as the build ID, the build number, then you can also have a node name and etc. Okay, let us try to see how to use this built-in variable inside the scripted Jenkins file. I will try to use the build number and the node name. Let us copy them and use it in our scripted Jenkins file. So in case of Windows, you can access any environment variable using a syntax: open %sign, close %sign, and then in between you'll have to insert the variable. I'll be using a build number here. I can give it like this. This is for the build number, and on host, then you can add a host name. The host name here is the node name. You can add a node name here. And if you are using a Linux environment, you can access using a syntax $, then 2 flower brackets, and you'll have to give env dot the variable name. This is how we can access using Linux. So let us delete this. Now let us save, apply, and go and build. Execution is completed, and you can see it has told, so there is a spell mistake here, so it's for the build 12 and on a host this one. This is how you can use the built-in variables from Jenkins. Now let us try to use the local variable and the global variable in the scripted Jenkins file. Let us go configure. Let us add a variable here. You can add a variable using a keyword def and variable name as local checkout. I am local to checkout. And then I will give here the value I am checkout. Then I will try to access this. Using a batch and echo command, but make sure that instead of single quotes here, you use a double quote, and then give a command echo value of variable is. For the local variable, the syntax is again $, flower bracket, and say inside which you'll have to put the variable. And let us also try to use this variable outside the block where it is defined and see what happens. Ideally it should show an error. Let us try to execute this. The build failed. First let us see, yeah, is it properly printing? Yes, it is printing the value as I am checkout. That stage is passed, but in the build stage where we are using this variable, it got failed, and after that none of the other stages were got executed. Okay, so this is how basically um, you can use the local variable, and the scope of the local variable is limited to the block where it is defined. So in case if you want to use this variable across the stages, then you'll have to define it as a global variable that you can do putting this variable outside of stages, and then put the value as I am global value. Now save, apply this, save, and try to execute it. Now the build is passed. Yeah, you can see I am a global, so that you can execute across the different stages. Now let us check how to catch an exception in scripted Jenkins file. And for this example, what I am doing is I am trying to define a variable which is of type local variable, and trying to access this local variable outside the scope of this particular variable, right? So I have defined under the stage at checkout, but I am trying to access the variable under the build. So obviously this will fail. This we have already seen, but again I will try to execute this, and if you see, the test has been failed, right? So in such cases there is a possibility that we can cache this exception using try and catch box. Similarly, how we use in other programming languages like Java and JavaScript, right? We can also use try and catch in Groovy as well. Let us go and do that. So what I have to do, the entire stages I will be trying to put it under the try block. I will put a try block here, and I will end the try block after this stage. After that, I will be catching an exception. E, and then I'll try to print echo the failure is due to, then the value is stored under e dot get message. E dot get message function, but in order to print that we'll have to use as a format of variable. So we'll use the variable format like this, and let's say apply, save this, and trying to execute. Now the test should pass because we are catching the exception. If you see, test is failed, and the reason for the failure is local variable for class is not available, right? This is no such property, right? So no such property local variable for a class groovy.lang.binding. It is just says that the local variable that you are trying to access on the build the block is not available. And generally this is not correct, because since there is a failure, your build should show the failure. So in order to do that, what we can do is we can go to throw block, sorry, we can go to the catch blocks and try to throw the exception. We can throw the exception using a keyword throw with an exception, throw e. Now the test will fail. But it will show the reason for the failure, and then it will throw the exception. This is how we can use try and catch block inside the Jenkins file in a scripted way, right? Now let us understand the syntax of declarative Jenkins file. I will take a same job and I will go to the configure section, and under the pipeline script I will delete this. I have already created a sample declarative Jenkins file and I will paste here. The declarative Jenkins file starts with the block pipeline, which is a mandatory the mandatory parameter or a mandatory block, under which you have an agent. Agent specifies the host where the entire pipeline will be running, right? So after that we have stages. So under the stages we have stage, and under the stage we have a step. Under the steps we can specify what command to be executed. For example, under the stage here we have it as a checkout. What we will be performing is we will be performing the code checkout from the source code management system. So I'll, for a time being, this functionality is not there, I'll delete that. I will add a simple statement, echo checkout git branch. Then there is a stage called build, under which there is a step. Again there is a test, under which there is a step. Then you have a package and deployment. It will follow the same structure. So these are the mandatory parameters of a declarative Jenkins file. So the mandatory parameters are pipeline, agent, stages, stage and steps. Under the steps you can also have a script block, which is not mandatory. Okay. Now let us try to save this and try to execute it. It is taking a bit of time. The build is completed now. If you see, the log is similar here as we observed in the scripted Jenkins file. So that this basically displays the different stages, and also since we did not specify any host where the test has to be executed, it by default took the built-in node for the execution. And you can also see the pipeline steps and how much time it took, and you can also see the pipeline overview. So these are the different stages that pipeline has. So in order to understand the syntax better, it is good to follow the official documentation of Jenkins. There is a section for the pipeline syntax. I will also put this link under the description. So we will go through each and every parameter and try to understand them. First let us go to agent. So agent specifies where the entire pipeline to be executed, right? So agent can have a value as any. So it will pick up any of the host that is configured as part of Jenkins slave configuration. So agent can take a different parameters. I already explained any. Any will pick up any of the configured the agent, Jenkins agent, right? So none. When applied at the top level of the pipeline block, no global agent will be allocated for the entire pipeline and the test will fail. Basically, if you put it as a null, if you put it as a none, so none of the resources will be allocated to run the job. Hence, the job will fail. So if you want to go and try, you can basically try. Let us configure this. Let us go and give it as none. Let's see what happens. Build now. According to me, it should fail. Ideally, it should fail. Yes, it failed. And there is an error. Okay. It says there is an error. And if you want, you can also try to print this error. So let's see what is an error. You can go to the console. You can go to under pipeline. You can also go to pipeline console and see what is an error. there is an exception. Yeah, so perhaps you forgot to surround the bad step with the step that provides this, such as node. Okay, so something is missing. Okay, that is, yeah. So let us go back and basically make it as any and apply, save, build now. It passed. Again, let us go to the pipeline console. So there is no error. Okay, so that is how none works. So if you want to specify a particular host, for example, in our case, if I come to dashboard, I have Windows Slave 11. If I want to specify this, then I will have to specify using a label. Okay, for example, let us copy this and come here, go to dashboard, then our test, then configure. Under configure, for the agent we can give this value, the label as let us apply this. Let us go back, and what is my agent name? Windows 11 slave. Let us come back here and go and configure and give the value, and now it should execute on this particular agent. Note down here, it will be running on Windows 11 slave, but it will be using this particular path as an workspace. This is the configured path during the slave configuration. Just remember this, because we are going to use another the syntax where we are trying to use a Windows slave but with a different workspace. Let's go back, and if you see, there is another way of defining an agent using a node. Okay, node can contain the multiple values. It can contain a label along with the custom workspace. Okay, let us go and search for custom workspace. If you search a custom workspace, this is how we can specify the custom workspace. Let us take this and let us go. Okay, before that I will just copy this, and I will also take a path from here, and I will give a new path. In background I was building the data. Let us go and configure, and let's remove this, and in the agent we will add node having a label Windows slave. There is something, yeah, so this has to be, it is giving a syntax error. Yeah, syntax error is gone now. So label and a custom workspace, I will be giving d work Jenkins, and I will take an workspace and I will give a value as test troop. Let us see if it works. Apply, save, build, done. Console output. Yes, see, running in D Jenkins workspace test troop. Okay, the execution will be done under this particular directory. So this is how we can change the workspace as well. Okay, so when it started with this, but afterwards it changed the workspace. Okay, that is how we can configure the agent. Agent can have a value as, it can have a value as any, it will pick up any node. It can have a value as none, nothing will be allocated. You can specify the host name, the configured slave or configured agent name, or you can also specify the node which carries the label as well as the custom workspace. Now let us go to stages, and the syntax of stages you already seen. Stages can contain multiple stages, and a stage can contain multiple steps, right? So this is how you can define it, right? Yeah, so yes, there is nothing much about that. Okay, then let us go back to steps. Under stage you can have steps. Stage, environment. Yeah, so in a step you can have multiple commands. You can provide a multiple commands in a step. Sometimes you can also specify a script within the step. So let us also search for that. If you can have a script, yeah, so if you have under the step you can write a script basically. Okay, so this is how you can write a script, like, yeah, so for iterating you can use a for loop or any programming construct, but it basically uses Groovy as a programming language, so you'll have to use the syntax of Groovy programming language. Okay, so in a nutshell what you can have, so as a mandatory parameter for the declarative pipeline, you should have a pipeline. So if I come back here, so you should have a pipeline under which there should be an agent, and after that you should have a stages. Stages should contain one or more stage, and similarly under stage you can have steps. So this is how the declarative pipeline basically structured, and these are the mandatory parameters. So pipeline, agent, stages, stage, steps are the mandatory parameter, and you can also have other parameters like scripts, or you can also have a post that will handle after the execution your post conditions, right? So yeah, this is also not mandatory. So let us go and explore what basically post does. The post is a block that executes after your execution is completed. Okay, so you can have specify the post with the different conditions, like post can have always. Always means it will execute irrespective of the test is passed or failed. Okay, changed, it will be executed only if the test result is changed. For example, the previous run was failed and this run is passed, then only the post will be executed. Fixed, only run the step in a post. If the current pipeline run is successful and the previous run is failed or was unstable, then only it will run. So there are many other parameters and you can go and explore it. And so the post, the syntax looks like this. You have a pipeline. Under pipeline you have an agent and stages, and once the stage tag closes, then you can write a post. Post can have a parameter called condition called as an always, and then you can write a step that you want to execute as part of this block. So far we explored the syntax of the declarative pipeline, what are the mandatory blocks, and what are the different values that the agent can take, and how the the post is structured. Now we will try to do certain kind of an experiment, like how to define a variable, how to access the environment variable, then how to trigger a build as a cron, and also we try to write some script within the step using the groovy and things like that. Also we can also there is also one more thing. If you go using Jenkins file, and also how to handle the secrets, your credentials, right? So that is also possible using the declarative Jenkins file. We will explore all of this one by one. Now let us try to define and access a local variable. So in order to do so, in case of a declarative pipeline, this can be done under the script block. We cannot do it under the step block. If you do it under the step block, it will give an error. So we'll have to, under the steps, you will have to create a script block. Then under which you can basically specify your variable. So you can define a variable. So the syntax is the same because it uses a groovy language. Local variable equal to checkout, and after that I will try to print this variable using echo. Then I will give a double quotes. Then I will give my variable value is save, build, past my variable value is checkout. This is how we can make use of the local variable. Now let us try to access the built-in variables. So you can go to configure, then under the built-in you can specify, I think there was a built-in variables, right? Under the using Jenkins file, using the variables, and you have a lot of variables here. So let us use Jenkins specific variables. Try to use here. I will also put echo statement. I'll tell running checkout for a build number. You can specify the build number using, I think from here, right? Yeah, you can take this, paste this. You can also say on a host dollar node name. Apply, save, build now. Console output. See, 37th build running on this particular machine. Now let us see how to define an environment variable in case of declarative Jenkins file. So let us go here, and under using Jenkins file you have setting an environment variable. So in case of declarative Jenkins file, you can set an variable under the section directly under the pipeline before the stages. You'll have to use a block as an environment block under which you can define a variable, and you can directly use this variable in the different stages. Wherever you want, you can use this because it acts as a global variable. Okay, let us copy this block. let us go to our pipeline, configure it. After the, I will try to remove this for a time being. This is not needed. You only need a label. Let us only specify a label. Now under environment, we'll define a variable as scm val, which is in our case it is a git. So let us echo it here. Similar way, echo, I can give scm used for this pipeline is, then you will have to use a dollar scm val. Let us save this, try to execute. See, this is the SCM used for this pipeline is git. It retrieves the value of the environment variable that we defined. Another way of accessing the environment variable is using the keyword env. So let us go to using environment variable. If I scroll down, you see you can also access all these Jenkins environment variables using the keyword dot called as an n dot build id. Okay, so let us try to see this, and let us go back to our script and let's go to configure section. Under configure, we have already created an environment variable. Earlier we were accessing directly like this. Now let us try to see if we can access using env dot. Apply this, save and build now. Execution is done. Console output. See, my variable value is checkout. Not that one, right? Sorry, not that one. My SCM is git. This is where we used env. If I configure, this is where I used env, right? Yeah, SCM is this one. So you can access the environment variable also using a keyword called env dot. Now let us see how to handle the secret text inside the declarative Jenkins pipeline. For this, you will have to use a function called credentials, and using the credentials you can keep your key as a secret. So for that, you need, for the credential functions, you need to pass a parameter which is the ID of the credential that you configured in your Jenkins. So let us go and use this. I will just copy from here and I will go to my pipeline configuration and I will just take this out and use this. Instead of AWS, I will take out this, and instead of AWS I will use it as git, and I will go and apply. I'll come back to dashboard. I'll go to manage Jenkins, under which I have a credentials, and I have already configured a credential to access the GitHub. The key for this is SSH GitHub. I'll take this, go back to dashboard, go back to my test, configure. Here, instead of the default one, I'll put my actual one. Okay, and then I will try to access this, and here I will use SCM key, the key for SCM, right? The key to access SCM is this key. Apply this, save this, and now go and build it. Basically it should throw me a warning telling that you are using a confidential information. If I go inside, it says that this is you are doing some kind of insecure interpolation of sensitive variables. Okay, so let us go to the console out, and if you see, it basically did not print the value that is stored here. Instead of it printed a star star star. That is why basically this is how basically the access keys are protected. Now let us try to add a post section, and you can go here, click on a post section, and sample code you can get it from here. I will just copy paste. I think this is it. This is for 1 2 1 2. This is for this. I'll just copy this. This has to be put. This has to be put. I think let us go to configuration. Has to be put after stages. I think this is the one before the pipeline tag closure. I'll put it put always. I'll be executed always. Okay, so let us try to save this and build now. And if you go to console output, it executed this particular block. Okay, the post conditions will be executed after your test is done. So you can do certain jobs like a cleanup job once your test is completed, like wiping out your workspaces and deleting some reports, or publishing your report. Sometimes you can do all these operations once your build or your test is completed. That is why the post block is very important to handle the post build, post test operations. Okay, let us what we will do. We will try to add a post based on the condition only to execute when it fails. Right? The condition for that is only on a failure. Right? Yeah. So I'll give it as a failure, and I will come back here. Then I can go configure, and then I'll get it as here check running when failed. Okay, apply here, save here. I'm putting a build now. Console output, and says that yeah, none of the post commands are executed because I put a condition as only execute when it is failed. Now let us try to introduce an error, and let us go configuration and try to access a variable that is not being used. Okay, that is not been defined. Okay, so let us do it under the build space, or just echo, and instead of git I'll put it as Bitbucket. Okay, apply here, save. Now the post condition should execute because your test is you're making a test to fail. Test is failed. Running when failed. This is being executed. Declarative Jenkins file also provides a provision to configure and to add a tool. Let us go and see how to do it. You can go to pipeline syntax in the documentation, and then you have to go to tools. It says a section defining the tool to auto install and put on the path. It auto installs the tool, and put the binary onto the path variable. This is ignored if the agent is none is specified. If you select an agent as a none, then this is ignored. For any other configuration of an agent, this will be used actually. Okay, so here what we are doing, we are trying to install a tool called Maven. Maven is basically used for building. So let us also go and do the same thing. Before adding this block of code into our Jenkins file or a Jenkins script, let us go and check whether the Maven is already installed on our machine. To do this, we will have to bring the command line, and then we will have to give mvn -- version. So if it is installed and configured correctly, then it should give us the currently available version, but currently this command is not recognizable. That means the Maven is not installed on this machine. Okay, now let us copy paste this and go to our test, then configure, and then add this block of code here, and then just apply. And if you refer to the documentation, it also says that the tool name must be pre-configured in Jenkins under manage Jenkins. Let us do that. Let us go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, and let's go to tools, and in the end there is add Maven. Then the Maven version is 399, so I will give it as Maven _ 3999, and then I will take which version to install. I am going to install the highest version. Let us apply here, and let us copy this and then save here. Then come back to our job, configure, and replace this with the name of the Maven that we configured. Now apply this, and once the Maven is installed, now we'll have to verify whether the Maven is rightly installed or not. For that, I have created a stage called check Maven version. I will add before a checkout, then I will apply, then I will save. So if you go here, what I am doing in this stage is I am adding a step that will execute a command Maven -- version. Let's apply this, let's save this, and go and execute this. Execution is complete. Let us go to console output, and if you see what it is doing under the tools section, it is trying to download the zip from Apache Maven and then unzipping that into this particular location. Okay, and when we try to give a Maven -- version, it gives the version as 399. Okay, and if I go to a Jenkins folder, there is a tools under which there is a Maven installation. There is a bin here, right? This is how you can install the tool when the pipeline gets triggered, by providing a tool section in the declarative Jenkins file. Another directive which could be useful is the triggers directive. Let us go to triggers directive. Triggers directive defines automated ways in which the pipeline should be triggered. There are different ways in which pipeline can be triggered. One is a manual trigger, like just going and clicking on the build. That is how we were doing till now. So another one is scheduling, putting some kind of a scheduler that will trigger the pipeline sometime in a night or some point in a day or things like that. You can use the time when the pipeline should be triggered. The third one is the automated trigger, that is as on when the developer pushes his changes into the centralized source code management system, there will be some hooks that are configured in case of GitLab or in GitHub. This will automatically basically trigger the pipelines. The trigger what we are talking here is a scheduled trigger which triggers a job in a given time. The syntax for which is triggers with the block and then it uses the cron utility. The cron is an utility that helps to schedule a job or helps to run a job at particular point in time. It takes 5 parameters and the syntax is minute, hour, the day of the month and the day of the week. This cron job will run or trigger your pipeline every 15 minutes. So we are giving h by 15, that means every 15 minutes this job will be triggered, and remaining things we are giving it as a star here. That means it will going to trigger a job once in 15 minutes. The syntax for triggering the pipeline: every day, every weekday 1 to 5 is every weekday, at 23 hours is h23, then star 1 to 5. So far we have explored the syntax of both scripted and declarative Jenkins pipeline. Now we will proceed to set up an actual pipeline that clones the test script from GitHub and executes the test. In this setup, we will use Newman command line tool to run the Postman API collection. For this task, I will be using already available GitHub repository. I have a GitHub repository that contains a Postman collection. If you don't know about a Postman, Postman is a tool that is used for testing of API. So in this collection, I have automated the few APIs, including put, get, post, and I have exported this collection from Postman tool and added to the GitHub repository. You can run this Postman collection using the Newman command line tool. Newman command line tool is based on node.js. So as a prerequisite, you need to install node.js on a machine in order to work with Newman. You can clone this Git repository using the URL, using this URL via the SSH way. Okay. Also, you can also clone via HTTPS, but for this example, I will be using cloning via SSH. Okay, let us go back to our configuration. I have already created a declarative pipeline. This has got 2 stages. One is a checkout stage, then running the Postman test. Okay, the third one is the post actions, where I want to publish the reports that is generated by the Postman test only if the test is success. Okay, and I have defined a bunch of the variables, the environment variables. This is the variable that takes care of that stores the URL of my Postman collection. So I have copied this URL and I have put this URL under Git repo, and I will be cloning the main branch. If you see the branch that I will be interested in, the main branch. So my branch is a main branch and my credential is SSH GitHub. This is I have pre-configured this as part of my settings. In order to see that, you will have to go to Manage Jenkins. Under Manage Jenkins, you have credentials. Under credentials, you can see I have already configured the SSH way of working to communicate with the GitHub. If you are interested how to do this, there is a separate video that I have created. You can go and check. I will also put the link of this video in my description. Okay, so you'll have to take an ID. This is the SSH GitHub. I'll go back to my pipeline. And this is ID, and this is my Postman collection. Okay, my Postman collection is this one, and then I will be using a tool. Sorry, I will be using a tool called Newman. When you generate, when you run the collection using a Newman, it will basically create a folder called Newman, under which it will store all the reports. Basically it will store the JUnit based report. So this is my JUnit report directory, and this will be under the folder called Newman. slash there will be an XML file that gets generated. First I will be checking out the code from the main branch of this from this repository, and for this the command is git then URL colon, you will have to pass the URL. I have stored this URL in the git repo variable, followed by the comma, the branch, you will have to specify the branch. The branch is the main branch, and the credential ID, I will be using the credential ID as using the credential ID as the SSH GitHub. There is a documentation that says how to use the Git plugin, and it says that it performs the clone from a specified repository, and it says what are the parameter it takes. If you scroll down here, it says it needs an URL, which is the URL of the Git repository. In our case, this is a URL. Then it takes a branch. The branch is main for us, and we are also using the credential ID, which is also a string. So we will be using all these things with the comma separated. For example, credential ID, the credential ID with my credential comma the URL is this. The same thing I have done here. Git with the URL as a parameter, I am passing the URL. For the branch parameter, I am passing the branch, and for the credential I am passing the credential ID. Once that is successful, the next stage is to run the Postman test. As I told, you can run the Postman collection using the Newman as a tool. So Newman is a command line tool which uses which provides a way to run the Postman collections on a command line. So the command is Newman run. The path for the collection, the path for the collection is this one, the path and the collection name, this is the one, and then you will have to give -r option to generate a report. So here we will be generating two kinds of report. One, we will be putting the results of the run into the command line interface, that is into your console log. Along with, we also be generating the JUnit report. If you note here, this has to be passed within a double quotes. Since we have already used a double quotes before the bat, I will be using this via the escape slash. I will be using a slash is acts as an escape sequence here. Once the test is run successfully, then the next step is to publish the report. This can be done using a JUnit plugin of Jenkins, and you will have to give the path where it can find the report. In our case, the report will be generated under your workspace. It will create a new folder called Newman, and under which it will create an XML report. So we don't know the name of the report, but we know the extension of the report. That is why we gave star.xml. So this is how your Jenkins declarative file looks like, and let us go and execute this. Test is completed now. Let us go to the console log. So what it was doing, it basically cloned a repository. So this is the operation that it did. It used git.exe and it performed the fetch operation. It cloned the code base into the local workspace for under this Windows 11 slave. Under the folder, I think here, work Jenkins /workspace pipeline test, and after that it started running the Newman. It started executing the Postman collection using the Newman tool, and this is the console log. The test is successful. You can also go back to the test report. Here there should be a test report, and this is the JUnit based test report. And if you go inside the root, it says it basically this collection has 4 tests and check option, create user, get user, and get not found. If you go inside, it says what are the tests that is been executed as part of it. Okay, and if you are interested, then you can also go to the workspace that is under Jenkins work Jenkins. This was my workspace. If you see from the console log, if you go to the console log, this is my workspace. So I'll go under that workspace, under which I have a pipeline test. See, under the pipeline test, I have the collection that is cloned from this particular repository, and after that, while during the execution, as I told, it created a Newman folder. Under the Newman folder, you have the reports. Okay, and your JUnit plugin will be looking for a report under a Newman directory with an extension .xml. So this is how basically you can create declarative the Jenkins file inside your Jenkins job to run the test, to clone a particular the repository and perform a build operation, perform a test, and prepare the package and do the deployment. In this step, we have provided declarative Jenkins file as part of the pipeline itself. Now we are going to put this Jenkins file in a source code management system and then use this in our pipeline to run the tests. How to do this? So for this, you will have to go to the definition. Under the definition, you have to select pipeline script from SCM. As soon as I click this, it asks what kind of an SCM. I will select it as a Git. Then it will ask for the URL for the repository. In my case, the repository URL is the URL for Jenkins Postman collection. I'll copy this and I'll add this. And once I add, this will ask for the credential. I will give the credential. This credential is needed for the Jenkins to communicate with my GitHub repository. And after that, it will ask for the branch. In my case, the branch is main. I will give it as main here. Yeah, that's all the configuration. And now what I have to do, I have to go to my repository and I have to create a Jenkins file. For this, I will do add file, create a new file, and it will ask for the name. I will have to give Jenkins file, and then I will copy paste the content of the pipeline, okay, that we used earlier. So I will take this from my last test, I will paste here. So only thing I don't want here is a checkout. This will be done as part of the pipeline itself. So I will remove this, checkout will be done, and then I don't need some of these variables up to here, okay, because all these things are already configured in the pipeline. So I will remove this. So what we need is a Postman collection, report directory, and JUnit report. These are already I have given here. So it's a copy paste from the previous script. So I will basically go and commit this change. I will have to give the commit message. I will give the create Jenkins file and commit the changes. Now my Jenkins file is available. Now I will go here and it will also looks for Jenkins file. Then I will apply here and then I will save here. So the configuration is done now. Now we have to go and execute the test. Let us go and execute the test. The build is started and build is completed. The test execution is also passed. Let us go to console log and see what it has done. So it basically did the cloning job and it cloned the latest build with the commit message is create Jenkins file, and after that it started executing the test which is given as part of this Jenkins file. Okay, started executing the stages, and you can also see the stage is run Postman test. Okay, the stage is run Postman test, and once the test is successful, it started running the post section as well. See, this is a post section. Okay, this is the post action, and it ran the JUnit to publish the report. Okay, let us go and see our report. You can find the test report here. So I think it also passed now. It basically ran 7 tests, right? So let us come back to the so this is how basically it looks like. Okay, test looks like, and you can also go to pipeline console, and see everything is perfect here. Okay, in summary, in this tutorial we explored what Jenkins pipeline is and how a Jenkins file orchestrates the entire pipeline process, including build, test, and deployment actions. We also explored two types of Jenkins files, scripted and declarative, and also we brought the comparison between them, listing out the pros and cons. We also examined their syntaxes by performing hands-on exercise with each of these files. Finally, we demonstrated a real-world example by creating a pipeline that clones the code from a repository and runs the test. We also saw the two variations of a Jenkins file, where the Jenkins file was part of the pipeline itself and the Jenkins file part of the source code management system. I hope you enjoyed learning with me. If you find this video helpful, please support the channel by subscribing and turning on the notification so that you don't miss any new content. Stay tuned for more exciting videos, and thank you for watching.